Hello, welcome back. We are on part 5 of my solo Brutal V Rising run. There are obviously 4 videos before this one. They are all in a playlist if you'd like to catch up. But a quick intro, we have the V Blood multiplier turned down slightly to plus 25% instead of plus 70%. The Brutal moveset is on, and everything that's not a V Blood is at its default damage, which if I remember right is 40%. And a little update for anyone following the channel about why these videos are taking so long. I have been having one of the most grueling months of my life for my day job work. I've been working a lot of nights and weekends to get a big release out, and I haven't even had time to play games, much less edit videos about them. For example, I got to Dracula probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I just haven't even had time to sit down and do a single attempt. So we're still waiting on that to finish up this run, but otherwise I just have to actually edit the videos. So I'm doing my best. I'm also trying to get back into some game development, so I have work to show in a dev vlog, but we're doing our best, and hopefully things will smooth out, get back to normal a little bit. At this point in the run, we are in Act 2. I've defeated Beatrice, Tristan, Vincent, and skipped ahead a little bit to Maja or Maya, I don't know how to pronounce their name, so that I could unlock the next set of research. I had a few books and a few scrolls, but we have not gone very far in this level of research yet. For me, this level is always the most tedious. This is the part of the game where I start spending like 20 minutes just chopping down trees, to make sawdust for paper, grinding up flowers non-stop. And if I haven't talked about it earlier in the run, I think I have, but you can learn the research recipes one of 2 ways. If you have the book, which drops from some of the humans, some bosses, in some loot crates, you can just learn that recipe from the book directly. You take it to the table and you can unlock it. There's also some merchants that sell the books, which I've been to before, but they're fairly expensive, so it's hard to get enough coins to actually buy like a significant number of books. Or if you don't have books, you can make paper, scrolls, or schematics with the paper press, and a certain number of them will unlock one random research item. So it's a good idea to use the books first, because if you randomly unlock one of the book research items, you can't use it. You can deconstruct it, but it doesn't give you enough paper or scrolls to unlock a second thing. It's slightly less. And another thing to remember is that even if I can get the research unlocked, some of the things that you can craft with the research need additional material recipes before you can actually make them. So the armor especially we cannot make yet because we need some new leather and stuff. So we're not home free. We get to fight some more bosses. And I was just looking through the V-Blood list to see who might be a good next boss, but a lot of the ingredients I really need are a little bit higher up, so I do actually decide to do a little bit of skipping ahead and try my hand at Leandra the Shadow Priestess, because she gives us dust collars. She actually lives right next door to my new house in this spooky church graveyard full of skeletons. It's another area you have to kind of get into before you can fight the boss. But I suppose the run back could be worse. Hopefully we won't need to fight her too many times. Leandra is actually a very memorable fight for me. A lot of the bosses, especially lower level ones, kind of blend together in my brain. I fight them and then I forget about them forever. But I actually remember Leandra from normal difficulty, because I don't know, there's something about the fight that makes it stick in your brain. Leandra shoots some shadow orbs, as you might expect from a shadow priestess. She also summons little guys, like the librarian does, and a lot of the fight up to the midpoint is just dodging various kinds of these shadow bolts. She does a couple of different ones. And you'll probably want some range for this one so that it's a little bit easier to dodge these bullets, but you do you. And then later in the fight, you go into this shadow mode, this shadow realm. And the trick to this phase That it will absolutely destroy you if you don't do this. You have to attack the enemies that approach you before they can hit you. So you have to be paying attention to the direction they're coming from, hit them as quickly as you can. Usually just one hit does it and they'll like kind of disintegrate. But because you're in this little shadow mode, you can only see a little bit of a circle around you, so stay alert. I got extremely close on my first attempt, down to just a sliver, so that's a good sign. And I do have to run back through the cemetery, but luckily it's still dead. Well, more dead than usual, so I can start on attempt 2 right away. My aim is super off on this attempt. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's actually going pretty well overall. I got to 50% basically without taking very much damage at all. And then I just have to focus during the shadow phase. And for some reason, during this attempt, the graphics got all weird. The shadow phase was not rendering properly, so I could actually see where the enemies were coming from. Maybe it's because a blood moon was happening at the same time and like the effects didn't play nicely with each other. I'm really not sure. I don't think it gave me a huge advantage, but I was able to defeat Leandra, so maybe that was a little bit of a cheat, but I did not do it on purpose. Now the reason I wanted to go for Leandra next, and also why I remember her so well, is because she gives you dust collars. Dust collars allow you to automatically teleport your dominated human friends to a prison cell if you have one. So you no longer have to run them back on these dangerous roads, which is fantastic. It's a huge time saver, and it also helps with the stress of trying to make sure they don't die on their way back. So once I have dust collars unlocked, I make some as soon as I can, and I always keep them on me in case I happen upon a really nice like 99% or 100% unit. A little note for multiplayer: if you are in a clan or a guild or whatever they call it with other players, your dust collars will just send your person to the closest prison cell in the clan. I don't know why they've done this. I feel like they know which castles are yours. They should be able to pick your prison cells specifically. I don't know if it's a bug or if it's intentional, but when we played with a couple people, we had like basically everyone except a couple people on the server were in the same clan. So we had to coordinate and be like, hey, is this mine or yours? And also do some escort missions to drag them manually from one castle to the other. So multiplayer is pretty annoying for that reason, specifically because of the dust collars, but single player, they are just all good, all excellent, very nice. Leandra also unlocks the ability to craft scourge stones, the next level of jewelry gear, which I think boosts your spell power pretty good, and she unlocks an artisan table to craft jewelry at, so we get a lot of really useful things from this one fight. I started crafting up a bunch of scourge stones. There are a lot of different uses for these, even going into the late game, so it's smart to have some on hand. I took some time to check on my research and harvest my plants before going out to fight Christina the Sun Priestess, this time for real. I did like a little half-hearted attempt before. She likes to walk between some of the human towns with a little group of nuns, and it's kind of annoying because if she's in the town, I have to clear a lot more mobs if I want to fight her, and it also means she's frequently outside, so I need to wait for nighttime as well. On my way up the hill to the church that she happened to be standing at, I did find a decent scholar. She's not perfect, only 85%, but in the past I have had a really hard time finding good scholars. I wish they would let you dominate the harpies. That sounds kind of sketchy coming out of my mouth in a sentence like that, but the harpies have such good scholars, and they're basically people, right? Anyway, that's my little plea to the devs. Let us tame the harpies. But this is where the dust scholars really shine, is that I just found this scholar on my way to a boss. Didn't have to interrupt my boss fight to walk her home. She can just get carried away by bats or whatever. I caught Christina just as she was leaving, and she actually went down super fast after getting hit by my spider ult. Some of her moves, if we could cover them very quickly, she has a few different like holy bullet moves where she shoots out these like golden bullets basically. And then she also does a heal. She will heal her like companions and I believe herself as well, I'm not sure. And then she does this big circle which I think just slows you and does damage. Don't stand in that. That's the pro tip there. But I must have been a little OP after skipping ahead a little bit because she went down like a ton of bricks first try. I looted the town on my way out, finding actually some nice loot in some of the houses, and headed home again. At this point, Kriig is the only one left on the row that is level 48 with my settings. And I know Kriig is a huge pain, but since he's next on the list, I head for the iron mines anyway. I'm really hopeful I can catch him and Meredith fighting, but it's a matter of both luck and also being prepared to intervene if you do get a little bit lucky. Seeing Kriig in a relatively empty space when I first caught up with him, I decided to go for it, just to see if I have what it takes. And let's talk about some of his moves here. The most annoying thing he does is he does summon a lot of adds, and there are different kinds of adds that he summons. So there's usually a lot of skeletons running around being a menace, and he will both summon like normal skeletons, and if you hit him when he's shielded, he will summon exploding skeletons. I think that's when he does that. He might also summon the exploding skeletons separately, I'm not sure. And then his other more hands-on skills are a grapple that shoots out in three, like kind of like a cone with three grappling hooks. You get caught in these, you get pulled in, and I believe it slows you. And then a big like spinning circle where he moves across. He covers a lot of ground, and the spinning circle is pretty big, so it's very difficult for me to dodge. I'm not sure if you need a veil to dodge that, but I think that's what I would recommend saving your veil for. I died pretty quick to Kriig, but don't worry, we'll see him again. This is hands down my least favorite boss, and it's primarily because of the run back, coupled with the fact that he wanders within the iron mine, so you're never totally sure where he's going to be, and you have to re-clear a lot of adds because he covers basically the entire mine, and he's a very leisurely walker. So if you want to fight him in his room at the back of the mine, It takes them a long time to get there sometimes. On my second run in, I saw Meredith and I got hopeful. I sneaked away to get my gear and then followed her around to see if she would fight Kriig. Unfortunately, Kriig was headed towards me on the opposite side of the mine, so they were not really on a collision course. They did eventually meet up and fight each other. Kriig absolutely stomped Meredith. She did not put up much of a fight, but for some reason when she was really low on health, she just booked it, running further into the mine. I followed in and found her dead, but by the time I found Kriig, he had already healed up. So I got Meredith's V blood. I'm not above taking a freebie, as you know by now, so we have Meredith done. Sometimes if you get involved in their fight at just the right time, you can use the explosion from drinking Meredith's V blood to damage Kriig, as well as get a little bit of a heal from that. But you have to get in there and get aggro before he resets or it will not work. And next in my run, I just enter a gauntlet of suffering. Kriig was extremely difficult for me. I'm not even really sure why he was so much more difficult than the other level 48s, but he was. I think a lot of it is the ads. If you're good with your shield, you can usually block the grapple. That's an easy strategy. But then you have to deal with all the other crap he does, like that big spinning circle, and you have to do all of this while the ads are just picking away at you like mean little birds. For me, if I couldn't get Meredith to kill him, it's easiest for me to fight him in his room in this little arena in the very back of the mine. For one thing, there's a lot of space to move around and dodge things, but for another, there's no green fire explosions. A lot of the mine has these just random fires that pop up, and then also the ads. You're not going to get hit by outside fight ads if you wander away too far, because you're in this room, and only the ads that he spawns are going to be in here. After a couple attempts, I simply got too mad to keep trying and went to farm some research materials instead. I was thinking if I could get the merciless iron axes, or maybe a different ranged weapon, I could find the right weapon for this fight. That's usually my strategy. Instead of getting good, I just keep trying different weapons and different gear and seeing if that helps. I wasn't really able to get anything new that I liked, so I just made some new weapons for my servants to beef them up a little bit and restocked my potion. After my little break, I went back to the mine and I almost rage quit then and there because Kriig was fucking dead. Someone killed Kriig and I'm pretty sure his body was right there, but it had already popped the loot. So I could not drink the V blood, and there were only 7 minutes and 45 seconds on the timer. So I think I missed him by like 10 or 15 seconds. I was so angry. I don't even understand what happened because I did not see Meredith nearby. I had to stop and just like take a breath because I was so mad. I could not believe that I missed this by such a tiny amount of time. Anyway, I followed Meredith when I saw her, but obviously Kriig had not respawned yet, so they couldn't fight each other. Eventually, I did catch Kriig when he had respawned out in the mine, and I noticed there is one benefit to fighting him out in the mine area instead of in his room, and that is that some of these like decorative objects are not breakable, and you can use them as obstacles to get him a little stuck when he does his spinning move, or just like block the grapple. There's some like mining carts and things that are not breakable, so he can hit them as many times as he wants, and he won't be able to get you. But unfortunately, this strategy was still not enough for me to get the win. I spent actual hours following Meredith around the mine, hoping she would do some work for me. Did several more attempts fighting Kriig. One time I did catch him half dead from fighting Meredith, but unfortunately I got caught by some ads, and I was basically dead by the time we engaged. I should have jumped on Meredith to do the V-blood explosion and get a free heal, but my brain did not work that quickly, and he got me before I could do that, and I died. I got so frustrated after hours of failure that I decided to run away to the mountains instead. There's basically only two things that are interesting in the mountains, and they are both big, scary yetis. Frostmaw is a big yeti that lives in the Hollowed Mountains, and he walks around outside, and you need to defeat him to unlock the thick leather, which is necessary for our next gear. A fun fact, he doesn't mind if you're a wolf. You can wolf right up and walk right next to him and it's fine. Which is funny because I swear during one of our fights he attacked some wild wolves like totally unprovoked. So that was kind of strange, but his whole deal is ice. And his most painful move is this triple ice bullet that he does. They're kind of spaced out, so it's a little hard to hit all of them with your shield, but I would recommend trying to learn the timing and using your shield to eat these bullets. You can get some, like, whatever shield you have, you'll get your shield bonus from that. It did take me some time to learn a lot of these moves though, so this was not a first try win. During my next attempt, I had another weird bug where in the middle of the fight, Frostmaw just vanished. And I don't know what happened. Maybe I went too far away from our like fighting point. But I just found him walking leisurely a little ways away and tried again. Weird. I think if you are careful, you can also use the shield on his little running around move to intercept it. I believe some of the videos I watched used that strategy, but I can't remember if that was this boss or a different boss. After about 50%, you see his big move, a big icy laser beam. If you are on a hill, which there's a lot of hills in the Hollowed Mountains, obviously, you might... that might be obvious, but if you're on a hill, you can go like above or below the laser beam. You can also dodge through it. And then there's this icy phase, which happens, I don't know, periodically. Maybe it happens at a certain percentage of health, but he will just sort of run around like a maniac, do some melee swipes, and you just have to try and not die while your visibility is hindered by all of the ice. It took me a few tries to get Frostmaw. I had the most trouble during the ice phase because it feels very random. And I mentioned when I fought the Dark Librarian, one of the things I really liked about that fight was how predictable the moves are. And this one is the opposite. It's very chaotic. It's not really clear to me where I need to be standing or what move he's going to do next. So that part was tough for me. The strategy that worked most often is for me to hold off on using my veil as long as possible, see how long I can dodge just by running, use my shield for some of the melee attacks instead of using the veil, and then when I have no other options, I use the veil either on the laser beam or on some of the more dangerous parts of the ice phase. After a few more attempts, I got him down, and now we can make some thick leather, which is what I did next. You need a lot of oil for this, which you can get by processing fish. You can find it in loot crates where humans live, or you can find it from your servant hunts. And that's one of the things that it's, I think, a lot easier to get oil from the servant hunts than, like for example, from fishing, especially if you need the fish to feed to your prisoners. I can now build the next level of gear that I'm researching because it's made with thick leather and iron. And I wanted to try and keep my armor sets cohesive, so I just made the Dark Magus gloves for now. Dark Magus? Magus? I don't know how to say that word actually. But I think I do cave and do some mismatching because sometimes I need the extra boost. Next, I grabbed some blood from my imprisoned scholar. You need glass bottles to bottle the blood, and then fish to get your prisoner's health and misery back up. Or I guess in the case of misery, back down. Prisoners do not heal over time. I don't believe their misery goes back down over time either. You do have to feed them, and the rats, you can feed them rats, but I don't think it does anything for their misery. So you really want to have some fish on hand. So every once in a while, if I don't have anything else to do, I will go fishing. After re-upping some of my materials, I set out to fight the next boss, Grethel the Glassblower. Grethel is in the quartz quarry, which is also what you use to make the glass, so that makes sense. There are some humans to cut through on your way in, but it's not one of the worst runs back. There are some patrolling mobs to keep an eye out for, but Grethel herself is inside of a building, so you don't need to worry about mobs or the sunlight, which is really nice. I really like the Grethel fight. I like how thematic it is to her character being a glassblower. The very first most common move that she does, I'm actually not really sure what these spinning things are, but she shoots out these spinning projectiles in this pattern that do quite a bit of damage if you get hit by them. You can block these with a shield, and that's the strategy I've seen most commonly. If you stand very close to her, it's easy to get all three of them blocked and get all three of those like shield boosts depending on your shield. And at the beginning of the fight there's just three of these, but later she starts to add in a delayed second wave of projectiles, so keep an eye out for that. If you time your shield a little bit late, you can block both of them. She also does this shield that you should not attack. Anytime a boss has a shield, you should probably not attack it. And then she'll lift up and fly across the room in a straight line. You should get out of her way when she does that, and she is fairly slow. So this one is really not very hard to dodge if you're paying attention, and you shouldn't really need to use your veil on this except if you're in a bad spot. And then the fun part of the fight is that she does this cycle of spitting out molten glass, cooling it, and her cooling move does a little pushback if you're caught in it, and then shattering it, and they shatter into these like rings, expanding rings of glass shards. Very similar to like the pufferfish and the fin fight. They go out in this circle. So there's a couple of ways you can deal with the glass. You can attack them, and if you kill them before they shatter, they won't blow up with the dangerous glass shards. You can also use a shield to block the fragments if you have your shield available and you're standing in the corner. It's kind of easy to just block all the glass shards. And then if you're really good at this fight, you can just dodge them. They are in a pretty predictable pattern with some gaps if you're farther away, so they are dodgeable. It was pretty hard for me to actually dodge them, so I just tried to kill the ones that were closest. I would say most of my failed attempts at this fight, it was this exploding glass that got me. And as I mentioned, she will start to do 2 waves of these flying projectiles, so if you time your shield correctly, you can catch both of them, and you should try to do that if you can. I'm also noticing as I watch this back, there are some corners in this room that I think you can use to block some of the ice shards. That's not a strategy I used intentionally, but sometimes I happened to be over in the doorway, and it was a lot easier to avoid some of the glass there. I had one attempt where I got her health so low that you could not see it in the health bar, but I got a little greedy thinking she was almost dead, and she just barely got me down first. And then there was one attempt where I was doing really, really bad, and then coincidentally during that really bad attempt, both of my servants were killed on their hunt. What are the odds of that? Luckily you can resurrect them, it just takes a while. There are also some moments in the Grethel fight where she just kind of runs around. She has this dainty little run. You could definitely get more weapon hits in there if you're quick and if you're brave. I was more focused on like dodging and shielding, so I didn't really take advantage of these little openings, but you could definitely try to do that. It took a good few tries, but I finally got Grethel the Glassblower. Even though it gave me a bit of a challenge, I really like this fight. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a good idea to plunder the quartz quarry while you're here, because you will need glass, at least for making potions. If you want to do any decorating, you'll probably need a lot of quartz for windows and such. But glass is pretty important. It's not like crazy important, but you will need a good amount of it. At this point, I can make a choice about which boss I want to attempt next. I do plan on defeating all the bosses during this run, but you don't necessarily need to defeat every boss if you don't want to. Not all of them give you things that are like critical to defeating the game. Like Kriig, I think you probably could skip if you want, if you don't want the scythe, but I'm not going to. I'm going to defeat him at some point. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I did some chores around the castle, cooked up some glass, made some bottles, organized my jewels, made some more paper, and did research that I could do, rezzed my poor servants who were killed. I did make some blood hunter pieces of armor, just to prepare myself for what came next. And then after weighing my options, I decided to face my nemesis again, and we went back to fight Kriig. There was a lot of sneaking around, trying to get him to fight Meredith again, and I actually executed the plan successfully one time. I managed to get his attention, used Meredith's blood to blow up I ulted and everything. Unfortunately, the part of the mine he was at was really narrow, and I just had a hard time avoiding attacks in this narrow space. And there was also the green fire getting in my way a little bit, which makes it all a bit more complicated. And after that, I was really frustrated, but I was convinced that I could not move on in this game without defeating Krieg. He would continue to haunt me, so I just kept attempting. And it was actually my next attempt. I got into the zone somehow. I focused really hard on avoiding the moves. I avoided the exploding skeletons, and those are the ones with the agony debuff on them. I tried to whittle down the regular ads when I could. I did my best to dodge the big spinning move. It's pretty fast, so you probably need your veil for that. I'm not sure if you can consistently evade it without the veil. And whenever he did his shield, I used that time to focus on the remaining ads instead of getting too close and risking hitting him with a move and spawning another skeleton. I used my shield on the grapple when it was available, and when it wasn't, I tried to keep moving, stay far enough away that there was a gap between the grapple hooks. Because if you're quick and if you're good at moving, which I'm okay, I would say, you can just dodge the grapple. Like, it's possible. It's just very hard for me. It's easier for me to eat them with the shield. And like I said, I just got into the zone somehow. I was doing really well, and by some miracle, I got him down. I was kind of proud that I got him without Meredith's help, but also I would have been perfectly happy to take a free kill. I have no qualms about that. But with Krieg dead, I gathered as much iron as I could and smelted it all to celebrate. The main thing that Krieg unlocks is the scythe weapon, which I know a lot of people really like. I could never quite get the hang of it. It has a ranged area of effect move that I think a lot of people think is really useful. I struggle to use it effectively. I have tried it a couple times though. And I think we're gonna end this part of the series on a high note. I defeated Krieg after just a grueling effort, and after that I went home, did a bit of housekeeping, did my iron smelting, got some glass made, blood essences, research papers, and all that. I reviewed my jewels again in case I picked up any really nice ones. I don't follow any guide for these, though I know that there are at least recommendations for like what you should do based on the build you're trying to go for, but I personally just go with my gut and I try to play to my strengths. So with that, we are done with Christina, Frostmaw, Grethel, Meredith, and Krieg. Sorry I couldn't do a proper overview of the Meredith fight. I guess I could always go back and fight her just for fun, but I've actually never had to fight Meredith. She basically always gets killed by Kriig, which I think is strange because she's such a higher level than Kriig, but she is on his domain, and there are usually ads around that help him out, so since she is another archer, I can also just assume she probably does archer things, and we've seen a lot of those. But that's all I have for today. Give this video a like if you don't mind, and subscribe if you want to see more, because I will be back with another video, and I hope to see you there. Bye bye!